What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the Nintendo Switch OLED and how the system seems to be far more popular than the internet gave it credit for, which I'm guessing we're going to hear that as a recurring theme when it comes to certain stuff. Actually, it's been a recurring theme. But before we get into that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're someone new, click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and get into this because recently I've been looking at how the Nintendo Switch OLED has been doing. So the system has been out now for a number of weeks. It's going to be a month coming up pretty soon here that the system has been available for purchase. And here in the US, I'm talking about major markets, whether it be Japan or the United States. Those are the two, I would say, most passionate markets when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's some European stuff that does happen there. I get that. But for the most part, where lots of stuff is going on with the passion with the Nintendo Switch is in Japan per capita or per people, and of course United States, where that is like the market leader with gaming with Nintendo Switch. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, the Nintendo Switch OLED is doing incredible. It's doing way better than what people thought it would do. There was outrage with the Nintendo Switch OLED. People were upset on a variety of factors, and to be fair, like, that was okay for that to be happening. People felt that the Nintendo Switch OLED should have been an actual bump up, so like a Nintendo Switch Pro. People have talked about the resolution of games. People have talked about the frame rate when it comes to certain stuff. We've seen how Nintendo has struggled in some areas. Some developers at least have struggled when it comes down to it. And on top of that, you're also charging $50 more. So people were expecting that type of bump, or hope to see a bump, and not just a new screen with a couple other build quality improvements like the built-in, let's say, Ethernet port with the dock, or like the better kickstand, although those are very nice. But now that I've kind of played around with the system quite a bit, and I've looked at the display with the Nintendo Switch OLED, and I have looked at like the kickstand, which is actually a lot better and a lot more usable and functional than I thought I would use it for when it comes to certain things, which we'll talk about in just a bit. And I kind of see everything with it. I understand why people are opting to spend that extra $50 on the system, and why the system is doing so well, because right now, pretty much on every single major retailer here in the US, and also even in Japan as well, which the sales are coming out with that, and the Nintendo Switch OLED is doing considerably better than the regular Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch Lite. So clearly there is that demand for the system. But here in the US, if you go on Amazon, they're selling for $670 for the Nintendo Switch OLED. People are reselling it for that price. If you go on Best Buy, it's sold out completely. If you go on Walmart, third-party sellers are selling it for way over the MSRP. So there is clearly a demand for this type of higher-end product. And as I've been using the system, when it comes to the kickstand, I said that I talked about that just a bit, it doesn't seem like it would be a big thing. And honestly, I didn't think it would be. But now with that kickstand, it actually makes it easier to play. Like, let's say you're at a desk and you want to just put your like hands on your armrest on your chair, or even on the desk, and just play that way without fully gripping the system itself. That kickstand actually makes it way more easier to do that. And of course, having this stuff like the Ethernet port, that's a nice little convenience thing, not having to use a USB dongle. But I think the biggest reason why people are gravitating towards this type of system and spending that extra $50 for it instead of just getting the regular Switch, which is more readily available, is because the OLED screen. That OLED screen, combined with what OLED TVs are doing, those are becoming far more cheaper. People are seeing that, wait a minute, that screen quality is actually really good. And you combine that with a launch of great games. You have stuff like Mario Party that just came out and looks fantastic as a remake on the system, revamped and everything. You have stuff like Metroid Dread, which is a great launch title to have with that type of hardcore or enthusiast hardware with that. So now you're kind of saying, okay, hold up here. There are a lot of people outside of the internet-osphere, Twitter-osphere, whatever you want to call it, people that were so angry and upset. There's a lot more people out there that are realizing the value of that. Now, as somebody who's always liked OLED since I've got it, I felt that OLED tech was the tech that I wanted to go with when I was researching TVs even the year before, because I got my OLED TV last year with the next generation systems, or the current gen at this point, with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. I wanted to get that TV that really paired with it and made the games look good. I was an absolute believer as soon as I hooked up that TV. but even when I was doing research the year before, OLED seemed to be the way to go with. I was just waiting on the right TV to come about so I could get that, and that was the LG CX OLED TV, which has been absolutely amazing for my PlayStation 5, my Xbox Series X to be exact when it comes to it. But even with my Nintendo Switch, it makes things look a lot better, and that was last year with the games, and now we're having some of these other bigger games coming out this year, and I think Breath of the Wild 2, obviously that's going to be awesome. But that OLED really does make everything pop, especially if you're talking about it with the Nintendo Switch games, because Nintendo Switch games, a lot of Nintendo first party games are very colorful and vibrant just to begin with. So that OLED screen really just makes things pop a bit more. And if you're not willing to drop that $1,000 or $900 on an OLED TV, if you can't afford that, the Nintendo Switch OLED is the next best thing if you're trying to play your games on an OLED TV. Of course, you can't play your other systems, but having Switch games right there on that screen that removes those bezels so it looks nicer. Obviously, the build quality is better because this is almost like a semi-review of the system itself. Like the build quality of the Nintendo Switch OLED just feels more premium and sturdier than the regular Nintendo Switch. It feels like a more put together type of system. So I think that when you start combining all of that together, people started seeing the reviews. You have the screen that's already more quality. You have the extra features. You have a little bit of the extra memory, which probably isn't as big of a factor, but it's nice to throw that in there. And you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, well, if I'm going to buy a Nintendo Switch, it's only $50 more to get this really cool screen quality. And maybe if I don't play portable games as much, that's fine. At least when I do play portable mode, I'll have that nice screen vibrancy to make it pop. And it does make a big difference with certain games. An LCD panel and an OLED panel, that's like almost night and day when it comes to colors and vibrancy. It really is, because the OLED panel is individually lit. You can turn off and on each one of those little crystals on there. LCD, it's not. So you have rich deep blacks on the OLED. You have way better vibrancy and pop with the colors, which LCD panels just can't provide. I mean, it's still good. Nothing wrong with LCD per se, but at the same time, it just doesn't compare to what an OLED can do. So I think people started seeing all of that. And I'm just trying to kind of put together what's happening here, because before the system launched, there was a lot of controversy. I mean, you can say that again, right? There was a lot of controversy when it comes to the Nintendo Switch OLED and why they're charging more for it. And heck, those questions are still there. Some people might not feel that it's worth that, and that's completely fair to think that. But I think that overall, when you're looking at the consumer base and what they think, if they were going to drop $300 plus tax for a Switch anyway, you might as well just drop a little bit more and get that nicer build quality, get those extra bells and whistles, because it's not like it's $100 more, it's $50 more. But I feel that if this was $100 more, then obviously I don't think it would be doing as well with the same feature set that it does have, but it's only $50. And as someone who's done a lot of marketing and research, that extra $50, man, can mean so much. Heck, even an extra $25 or so can mean the world of a difference if a product is successful or not. So I feel that when you combine it with the OLED tech, you combine it with the extra little things, and you combine it with the fantastic games that are coming out to help when it comes to just the system itself and what's coming on this system, I think that that's the reason why the internet was wrong, essentially, about the Nintendo Switch OLED and how it would do. Many people fell, and I'm not going to sit here and say everybody, because there were people that, yes, did come out and say that it's going to do well. There were content creators that said that as well, but there was a large number of people that felt that this was an unnecessary upgrade, that why did they even do this in the first place? Like, who's going to buy this system? And people felt that there was no need for that, especially since it didn't boost up the power of the system. So when you play the system in docked mode, there really is no difference. The only real difference when it comes to visual flair is if you play it in portable mode, which a lot of people don't play in portable mode. So I can understand where that sentiment came from, but obviously they were wrong on that. There are a lot of people, and I think that's what makes the Switch kind of different. There are a lot of people that love the option. Heck, even if they don't play as much in portable mode, they might be thinking to themselves, well, I might want to play in portable mode. I might have a wedding that I'm going to, or I'm going to be at the DMV, or I'm going to be somewhere, and I want to have that better display. So I might as well just get it just in case. I'll play mainly at home on the TV docked, but if I wanted to lie down in bed and play a game, I can do it. And if I wanted to have the best, I would say, experience that would be the Nintendo Switch OLED for that $50 more. And I think that's the biggest difference when it comes down to why the internet was kind of wrong on how this system would do, because some people felt that it would just be sitting there on storage shelves because it wasn't more powerful. But obviously that is not the case. And heck, even if you want to talk about scalpers, which is one of the things that people are saying, well, people are still buying those scalp systems. They're still buying there, or they're just sitting there. But from what I understand, people are still buying those scalp systems, or any stock that Nintendo puts into stores are selling very quickly, which we've seen in Japan with the Famitsu sales, where they actually show it, where the Nintendo Switch OLED is actually selling better than the regular Nintendo Switch, pretty much double. So whatever stock they get, they're selling there in Japan. So there's clearly that demand for the system more so than anything. And I feel that it's interesting to see that, because once again, people felt that it wasn't going to do that. But it just goes to show you how strong the first party IP lineup is, how strong the independent game lineup is, and how much people actually want to play games anywhere that they want and have that option. Otherwise, I don't think the Switch would be doing as well as it is. So it does make sense that they went with that OLED panel and kind of kept the cost down a little bit more now that we're seeing how well it's doing and they're making extra money off of it. But I also feel that this is going to lead into some pretty good things for the next Nintendo Switch system. Obviously, OLED tech from the beginning, obviously more powerful system. There could be some good stuff that comes with it. They've kind of figured out what to do with the kickstand, the build quality, having more memory in there. Those are things that were all going to be improved with the next Switch as well. So I feel that this could be a stepping stone to what they do next. But what are your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch OLED so far? I think I'll do more of a hands-on review of the system and even comparison later down the line as I play more games on it. Right now, I've just been playing Metroid Dread and also SMT5 as a review copy, which check out my SMT5 footage. But yeah, it's awesome to see in terms of just having it myself. Obviously, it would have been great if there was a little bit more power in there or something, or whatever the case is. But overall, I'm impressed with the system, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's doing so well. So what are your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch OLED? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.